Over the past 5 years, we've built a pediatric brain-based clinic that's helped children from not only all over the country, but even all over the world. And guys, let me tell you this, we didn't do this by following the traditional model. We did this by rethinking everything. So listen up, this is what happens when you stop chasing specific symptoms and start looking at the body as a whole and start rebuilding brains the way that they were supposed to be built. So from the start, I've always known that I wanted to work with kids. I went through a lot of pediatric programs as I was going through school, but at my first job after graduation, I was actually working at an adult neurology clinic. So at this clinic, we did some pretty amazing therapeutic interventions. Everything from high-level vestibular work with low-level laser therapy, work with nutrition, balance type therapies, and a lot of stuff that I learned there really set the foundation for things that we do today. But as I was working with adults and started seeing some of their amazing changes, in the back of my head, I was always wondering what kind of changes can we make with kids if we're having this big of an impact with adults. Because kids' brains, they're so much more fresh, they're so much more plastic, which means that they're so much more malleable and moldable just because of the way that neurodevelopment happens. A child's brain has a much higher ability to change compared to adult's brain. So soon thereafter, I actually started bringing on some of my own kid cases, and they started doing really well pretty quickly. It even became to the point where we were bringing on so many pediatric cases that it started becoming quite disruptive for all the adults already at the clinic. So soon thereafter, in September of 2021, I opened up NeuroActive, and that's where this whole journey starts. So here's the big question, what makes us different? So I think the most important thing to understand is that we want to look at the big picture. We don't want to chase specific symptoms. We want to look at ultimately what's feeding into those symptoms and find out the root causes of what's feeding into those weak areas of the brain and body that's resulting in things like focus and attention issues, speech issues, and behavior issues. So what do most clinics do? A lot of clinics chase specific diagnoses and they chase specific symptoms. So if you have an issue with meltdowns, add in behavior therapy. If you have issues with speech, add in specific speech therapy. And I'm not telling you to not do that. There's a reason why those things exist. For some children, it works very well. So guys, here's what we do. We take a step back and we want to figure out what the root cause of a specific symptom is. So for example, we know that the prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain right here, is in charge of things like focus and attention. If somebody's having ADHD type symptoms, if they're very impulsive, we know that that is secondary to this front part of your brain not working in the most ideal way that it should. So guys, here's where we're a little bit different. We want to know why the system is breaking down. Is it a straight brain-based issue? Possibly. Is it a gut issue? Is there an immune aspect to it? Is there an inflammatory aspect to it? Is there a mitochondrial energy issue that is affecting the brain? Absolutely. So we want to take a step back and we understand that everything ultimately is connected. So when we're coming up with our care plan, we have to figure out how we're able to put as many pieces of the puzzle together. And the more pieces of the puzzle that we're able to stack on top of one another, the more synergistic of a care plan that we have. And the more synergistic the care plan, the better outcomes that we're going to get. So if we address the foundation, ultimately the symptoms are going to shift. The same way that you're able to work out a bicep to make a bicep stronger, we're able to work out the brain and the body ultimately to help make it stronger. Now here's another thing that's extremely important to note. No one therapy is the magic pill. No one therapy is the magic bullet. What we found in our clinic, and it's been proven to be true time and time again, is the more we're able to stack therapies on top of one another, the more that we're able to combine therapies, the better outcomes are going to get. So that might look like things from sensory therapies to motor therapies to primitive reflex therapies to laser therapy to nutrition to diet. You guys get what I'm getting at here, but all of those therapies in themselves has a potential to be beneficial, but when you start stacking them on top of one another, that's when the real effective change comes. Another big thing we're going to be talking about on this channel is the equipment and the modalities that we use. Now, a lot of this equipment has been transferred over and adapted over from the adult therapy world because not a lot of equipment is directly designed for pediatrics. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that it's safe. That is our number one priority no matter what we're doing, is we want to make sure that there's a good safety profile behind everything that we're doing. But what we also want to understand is the why of why we're doing a specific therapy. So every single thing that we do has some level of research behind it. For example, the laser here. There's over 10,000 research articles showing the efficacy and how lasers can be beneficial for a handful of different conditions. And those conditions include autism, ADHD, behavior stuff, memory. So we want to adapt that research over and put it into our practice while still being able to maintain all of the therapies that we know works. Now, as we're starting a care plan, we want to figure out what the core foundational stuff is. And going back to the old 80-20 principle, we know that there is a big chunk of therapies that has a great potential to help a wide variety of kids. We've been playing around with these different protocols for a handful of years now. We've seen what's worked well, we've seen what hasn't worked well, where we don't want to 100% recreate the wheel for every single person that we see, because we know that there is a high likelihood that our protocols and establishing that foundation from a neurodevelopment standpoint goes a long way with a lot of kids. Now, with that being said, nothing that we do is cookie cutter. We take those foundational applications and we personalize it for that specific kid. So how long are we doing a certain therapy? What setting are we using? What specific movement might we tie in with the therapy? That's all specific for a kid's brain. And that's something that's very important to note. If you open up social media right now, you'll see 10 cures for autism, or take this one supplement to help your kids speak again. And what you have to realize is there's a foundational hierarchy for all this stuff. There's a blueprint that you have to follow, where the more foundational stuff that you can set, sure, you can start adding in some of your heavy metal detoxes and your parasite cleanses, but that's not your foundation. That's not where you start. There is a key starting point to all this, and that is what I'm going to be teaching you throughout this channel, of what that 80% of, hey, this has a high likelihood of helping a child, and as this continues helping a child, we continue stacking things on top of that. So because of this, because of all the information overload out there, so many of our families come into our clinic feeling burnout, they feel overwhelmed, and they just don't know what to do. So as our goal in our clinic, what I'm trying to teach you guys here, there's a handful of things that we can do that's extremely beneficial, but we also want to empower parents to have all of this information, maybe not at a high doctorate level, but the more confidence that you have in understanding what some of the foundational brain and gut and body things that we have to work through are, the more confident you're going to be, and the more that you're going to be able to do at home, that ultimately helps your child through this journey as well. So guys, listen to me. You are not crazy for believing that your child is capable of more. I can't tell you how many times I've heard doctors say, this is what your child can do, and this is what your child never will be able to do. The brain is more powerful than accepting these limitations. So if that resonates, then this channel is for you. Be sure to subscribe, be sure to share this with somebody else that you think it might resonate with, and we are going to be deep diving and going into so many cool different applications that you'll ultimately have in your pocket to help your child advance through neurodevelopment and optimize their brain and body.